Have you ever wondered how creators get those flawless fitness photos? Well, this guide's going to reveal the ultimate secrets on how to really edit professionally to make sure your gym content is looking amazing. So in this video, I'll be going over what software do you need, as well as showing you the step-by-step process on how to achieve the after look that's in the thumbnail, and what are some common mistakes to avoid when editing your fitness photos. And after editing thousands of fitness photos, I learned a couple things. So number one, what software do you need? And yes, there is free options, but when it comes to editing photos, especially if you're editing professionally and making a living out of this, I highly recommend Lightroom on desktop. The pricing varies if you're a student, if you're not a student, but it's around $10 a month. But if you want a free option, that's where Lightroom Mobile comes in. So now that you got your software in place, let's go ahead and walk you through the step-by-step process on how I edit my fitness photos and some of the common mistakes that people make when editing their photos. So let's go ahead and start editing now. Pull up your picture on Lightroom Mobile, and I'm gonna be editing on Lightroom Mobile because it's free. This applies to everyone, and I wanna make sure everyone can edit their pictures really good. So download Lightroom Mobile, hop into it, pull up your picture, make an account first, obviously. Let's crop it. Let's start by cropping it. So as you can see, Chantel is more to the right, and since Chantel, my model, always posts on her feed in her preference, I will just put her more in the middle. Now this is a feed worthy post, and I'll just rotate it a little bit, align with her shoulders and her hips just a bit, and then hit the check mark. Now the crop is set. Pretty easy, but let's actually go into the color now. So with this, let's start off on the left side with light. So what I did right now, go to edit, start with light, and I'm just gonna eye this. And I'm just gonna let you know, this is a really it depends scenario, because I'm just going to be walking you through how I edit this picture. So this could apply to you though, because I'm going to be thinking out loud what I think about the picture and how's it looking. So let's go ahead and start getting to work. So the exposure, the picture itself was already dark in the first place. So let me raise it up a tad bit, probably around 60s. Contrast, I'm going to raise it just a little bit, not too much. Highlights, I'll raise it up a bit too. No, not too much, because as you can see when I raise it, the back gets blown out. So I want to keep it probably in the middle. And then just so you know, a quick tip, I just move it left and right. See where I like it instead. So I'll raise this one up a little bit. Whites, let's go ahead and raise it a tad bit there. Blacks, I don't really touch that tab too much, so I'll just move on to the color. And this is where the color temperature comes into play, the white balance. Typically, this is something you set at production, so during your shoot. And if you want a video on how to do that, feel free to check out my channel. Maybe I've already posted a video on how to set white balance at the gym, but it's pretty simple. Once you've set it, you don't need to worry about it here in post. But if when your white balance was off and she looks a bit too orange, let's bring it down. But in this case, I'm gonna keep it at 0 because I set my white balance. Vibrance, I'm gonna raise it up just a little bit. So, hey, real quick, if you're finding value in this video, I'd appreciate if you like and subscribe, because I will be making way more content on how to elevate your content creation game. Not only that, but I'm making a course. I do have a free community down below. Feel free to check it out. Specifically, the course is called Visionary Circle, and the course that's in the making, maybe it's out by the time you're watching this, is called Visionary Creator. So I hope to see you in my free community. Back to the video. Saturation as well. Nice. And then let's go over to the effects tab. This is where some effects come into play. Texture. If your client tells you that she wants to remove some of her pimples, in my case, my client lets me edit. She knows that I would do the best thing for her. But if your client wants you to add a bit more of softer tone, you can scroll down and move to the texture. But I'm not going to here. Clarity. This is something that I'm gonna keep it just a little bit lower. I like how the clarity looks there. Dehaze, that's a vibe right there, but I'll just keep it a little bit low as well. Vignetting, this is where I mess around with. So you can add some dark vignetting at the edge of the pictures. I'm gonna add a little bit. Midpoint, I'll keep it subtle. Roundness, some things you can play with, but I'll go ahead and just keep it right there. A little bit low, so -40 on roundness. And then I'm pretty much done. I don't mess with the rest. And then I go over to detail now. And on here, this is where you can mess with sharpness, which I'm just going to keep at 0. Noise reduction, something that makes her skin soft as well, but I'll just raise it up a little bit. Probably around 20. 20 is a safe side that I always play with. And then color noise, the other tab, that's not something I mess around with, so I'll just leave that. And then last but not least, this is a pro tip. So now the picture is pretty much done, but I really want to make sure she pops more than the background. So now let's go ahead and do something that we call masking. So at the very bottom, you see a little circle that has dots around the circle. So click on that. Let's go to the plus icon, select subject. Now it's selecting Chantel, so like that. Now I can just edit her. So let's go to the light setting at the bottom left, and I'll raise up her exposure just a little bit, not too much, or else it looks like that. You don't want that. So raise it up, contrast. I'll raise up the contrast and bring up the highlights too. Bam. Now she is popping instead of the background popping with her. So now I just hit the check mark and now I'm done. So this is the picture that is finally complete, and I'm gonna go ahead and export it. So let me show you how to export that real quick. So at the very top right, you see the box with the arrow. Click on that and go to save, copy to device, and it saves it. And now you're finished. But if you're watching, and I want to give you some good tips because thanks for watching, at the top right, let's go ahead and do something what we call save preset or create preset right here. Once you create this, that means that next time you have a shoot that is specifically in the area that you shot Chantel, or you shot whoever you shot, one of your models, now you can just slap on this preset and it looks really good. I always still mess with all my pictures, especially if my client is paying me, but having presets is always something that you should have, specifically in areas of the gym. Like this one I call UFC window shot, and it's because it's really close to a window. And then I have UFC outdoor shots, and sometimes I shoot when it's outdoor, it has a very orange tint because of the walls. So what I have to do is the preset, it changes the white balance for me. I don't know, it's just some really cool stuff I came up with. So be creative. And if you want some of my presets, feel free to join my free school community that I have. Essentially, you just hop in there. I do have a tab that includes all my presets for all my gym shoots. So you can just go ahead and slap them on your pictures. So we actually got our picture looking like this all the way to this, just because of a Lightroom mobile preset. And that's what you want to do. You want to make sure you implement systems that save you time. So that's why you got to make presets, still play around with it yourself. But now that you know how to edit your fitness photos, you still have to make sure you're not making these mistakes right here. I see it all the time. And once you see these mistakes, you will not be able to unsee them. So it's good to know them though. Number one, orange skin. I know you've maybe seen this yourself, but always keep an eye on the photos you're editing, because sometimes you're playing around with different colors, and more than often than not, it changes over to orange and you don't realize it because you're so focused on other things. I learned this the hard way when I was editing one of my clients' photos when I first edited, many years back. He's like, hey, it looks like I got a tan. Looks very orangey, look like an Oompa Loompa. Wasn't being mean to me. He was a good friend of mine, but he laughed it off. I kind of laughed it off, and then I realized, oh, crap. Does look like an Oompa Loompa. So make sure you don't do that. And another mistake is when people bump up their ISO super high to the high thousands. That makes your shot look very, very grainy. Just really ruins the picture quality, because when you go into production now, it's really hard to edit that and remove that. And pro tip, there's actually software out there, specifically Adobe has like a denoise feature, which you can slap on a picture that has really noisy and the ISO super high, and it makes it look really good in my opinion. But let's not get to that to hope that we got to rely on software to help us out. So I encourage you, don't bump your ISO that high. Another big mistake is when the background of the potential model is really busy with people. And when you're shooting at a gym, it's bound to happen. It's okay. But I highly recommend using AI to remove the background. Not remove the whole background, but select your person or the people in the background and go ahead and do generative fill. And it's amazing of how much of a difference that can make. And the last mistake that I see people do is not have a low aperture. And what that means is that they're actually raising their aperture, which is their f-stop. So when you shoot a picture, there's not that much of a blurry background. There's not that much bokeh. And that makes you look a little unprofessional, mostly because if I shoot on my iPhone, it would probably look just as good if I'm shooting on the camera. that doesn't have a low f-stop. So make sure you bring down your f-stop to get that blurry background. Not only that, here's a pro tip that some of you may not know. If you're shooting out in the sun and your aperture is very low, f-stop's like at a 1.8, which is what this camera's at right now, there's going to be way too much light going in and it's going to be very washed out. So what do you need to do? You need an ND filter. Think about it like sunglasses for your camera. So like that, you can have the f-stop super low, have glasses on, and now there's not too much light going in. So now when you're shooting out in the sun, you can keep that f-stop low. Because if you walk with a low f-stop outside in the sun, it's going to be washed out. It's going to be way too bright. So put on some sunglasses for your camera. They're inexpensive. I have them down below in the description, which one's my recommendation. I have a few, but there are my 2 picks down below. So now that you've mastered editing your fitness photos, you're actually one step closer to making amazing content online. But you know that editing photos is just one piece of the puzzle. So to really stand out, you need to also take amazing videos too. And with that, you should check out these videos right here that will help you take your fitness content or content creation in general to the next level.